Hare Krishna Kaivalya Prabhu, can you please say the Premadhvani?
Krishnapad Paramhansa Paribraja Chakracharya Ashtotter Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai
जय
Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai
जय
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की
जय
श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्यामा कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की
जय
मथुरापुरी धाम की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय
जय
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय
जय
गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय
जय
श्याम वेद भक्त वृंद की जय
जय
गौर प्रेमानंदे
हरि हरि बोल
all glories to assembled devotees
हरे कृष्णा
all glories to assembled devotees
हरे कृष्णा
all glories to assembled devotees
हरे कृष्णा
all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga
हरि हरि बोल
Hari Hari Bol.
Good morning, devotees. Hare Krishna. So today's verse is Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 5th chapter, verse 20. I'll recite the verse and then everybody can recite 3 times. Mandavya Shapad Bhagavan Praja Samyamano Yama Bhratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam Jatas Satyavati Sutat Mandavya Shapad Bhagavan Praja Samyamano Yama Bhratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam Jatas Satyavati Sutat Mandavya Shapad Bhagavan Praja Samyamano Yama Bhratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam Jatas Satyavati Sutat. Please chant.
Hare Krishna. Mandavya Shapad Bhagavan Praja Sayamano Yamaha Bhratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam Jatah Satyavati Sutat.
मांडव्य शापाद भगवान प्रजा संयमनो यमा भ्रातु क्षेत्रे भुजि स्वयं जात सत्यवती सुतात हरे कृष्णा
हरे कृष्ण मंडपे सपद भगवान रोजा समयमा जमा आतु क्षेत्रे भुजिशायाम जाता शतवती शुतात हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्णा मांडव्य शापाद भगवान प्रजा संयमनो यमः भ्रातु क्षेत्रे भुजिष्यायां जातः सत्यावती सुतात हरे कृष्ण
Anyone else? We'll move to synonyms. Mandavya, the great Rishi Mandavya Muni. Shapat, by his curse. Bhagavan, the greatly powerful. Praja, one who is born. Samyamana, controller of death. Yama, known as Yamaraj. Bhratu, of the brother. Kshetre, in the wife. Bhujishyayam, kept. Jata, born. Satyavati, the mother of both Vichitravirya and Vyasadev. Sutat, by the son Vyasadev. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I know that you are now Vidura due to the cursing of Mandavya Muni, and that formerly you were King Yamaraj, the great controller of living entities after their death. You were begotten by the son of Satyavati, Vyasadev, in the kept wife of his brother. Mandavya Muni was a great sage, reference Bhagavatam 113.1, and Vidura was formerly the controller Yamaraj, who takes charge of the living entities after death. Birth, maintenance, and death are three conditional states of the living entities who are within the material world. As the appointed controller after death, Yamaraj once tried Mandavya Muni for his childhood profligacy and ordered him to be pierced with a lance. Mandavya, being angry at Yamaraj for awarding him undue punishment, cursed him to become a Sudra, member of the less intelligent laborer class. Thus Yamaraj took birth in the womb of the kept wife of Vichitravirya from the semen of Vichitravirya's brother Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is the son of Satyavati by the great sage Parashar, and Vichitravirya is the son of the same Satyavati by the great king Shantanu, the father of Bhishmadev. This mysterious history of Vidura was known to Maitreya Muni because he happened to be a contemporary friend of Vyasadev's. In spite of Vidura's birth from the womb of a kept wife, because he had otherwise high parentage and great connection, he inherited the highest talent of becoming a great devotee of the Lord. To take birth in such a great family is understood to be an advantage for attaining devotional life. Vidura was given this chance due to his previous greatness. The verse again. Mandavya Shapad Bhagavan Praja Samyamano Yama Bhratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam Jatas Satyavati Sutat. I know that you are now Vidura due to the cursing of Mandavya Muni, and that formerly you were King Yamaraj, the great controller of living entities after their death. You were begotten by the son of Satyavati, Vyasadev, in the kept wife of his brother. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाखाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललितान् श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते वैशेषिकादास अधिकारी दिनामिने नमः प्रार्शशिले प्रभुपाद अनुसारिणे अनंतता हृदय तस्मै शास्त्र भजन शोधने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी दिनामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश. Good morning, devotees, and thank you very much for joining this morning. Thank you also for giving me this opportunity to speak a little bit. Today we have elder devotees like Kaivalya Prabhu. We have senior, a lot of devotees who are more senior to me. So I'm going to try my best to speak a little bit that I have heard and read about this verse. So these are talks that are going on between Mahatma Vidura and Maitreya Muni. Until about verse 16, we heard about all the questions that Mahatma Vidura asked Maitreya Muni. He asked about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wants to hear about his pastimes, his attributes, etc. In the 10th verse, he also says that he has heard enough of the Itihasas and Puranas, and he has no interest in listening to that anymore. He says, you never get tired of hearing about the glories, the transcendental knowledge you'd never get tired. You never get tired of Krishna Katha, about hearing about Krishna and his pastimes. So that is what he wants Maitreya Muni to talk about. In the 18th verse, we heard Maitreya Muni glorify Vidura for making such wonderful inquiries that benefit not only Vidura but also the speaker Maitreya Muni. He thanks him for that, and these questions benefit the entire humanity, not just the speaker, not just the hearer, but anybody who reads. Like we are reading about this conversation after so many thousands of years, and we also will benefit from this. And for that, Maitreya Muni thanks Vidura. This is two great people appreciating each other. Yesterday, we heard about the great parentage of Vidura and the reason for him being such an elevated devotee. We heard that um, the, the problems of the world is not because of overpopulation, like the government keeps claiming, that there's too much population and that we don't have enough resources to supply for this population, and so that we have to control. Srila Prabhupada practically says that that's a vicious solution. Birth control is a vicious solution to this problem. He says what we need is good population on the caliber of Vidura, Vyasadeva, and Maitreya Muni. And he gives the procedure to make that happen, following samskaras, and most importantly, hearing and chanting the names of the Lord. In today's verse, the history of Vidura's birth is being recalled by Maitreya Muni. We heard that Vidura is a Yamaraj in his previous life. We call Yamaraj Dharmaraj also because he takes charge of the living entities after death. Birth, maintenance, and death, as the purport said, are the three conditional states of the living entities who are living in this material world. And after death, one has to face Yamaraj, who decides where one needs to take birth again, if they need to take birth, based on their actions during their lifetime. When Parikshit Prabhu gave class, I think on verse 9, he was telling about birth takes place in the 14 planetary systems. So it's not just the little world that we understand, the earth, but people can end up anywhere in the 14 planetary systems. And all that accounting is done by Yamaraj. And Srila Prabhupada says that he is very busy because there are more wrongdoers than there are righteous people. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But we also heard why Yamaraj had to take birth as a Shudra. We've been talking about it a little bit over the last few verses, but just to recap, Yamaraj was cursed by Mandavya Muni because Mandavya Muni as a child was piercing ants with blades of grass, and we heard about him being caught with a group of thieves, and so but anyway, to be brief, Yamaraj, Mandavya Muni asks Yamaraj, how could you do this to me? And when Yamaraj says that it's because of you doing this as a child, Mandavya Muni says that he shouldn't be held responsible for what he did as a child, and for that reason he curses Yamaraj to be born as a Shudra. He shouldn't have been held accountable for what he did as a child. So in this regard, about Shudras and becoming good devotees, Srila Prabhupada writes in the 113.15, Bhagavatam 113.15 in the purport. Srila Prabhupada explains this a little bit. And he says, even though Vidura was born of a Shudrani, and because he was born as a Shudrani, he was not, he was forbidden to be a party of the royal heritage. He could not become the king. Uh, and with his brothers, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. But how could he still be, how could it still be okay for him to preach Dhritarashtra and great kings like Yudhishthir Maharaj, which we have read through the first canto and second canto, how in the first canto, how Vidura counseled and instructed Yudhishthir Maharaj, and we also heard about Dhritarashtra telling Vidura talking to Dhritarashtra and instructing him in so many instances. So the first answer is that even though it is accepted that he was a Shudra by birth, because he renounced the world for spiritual enlightenment by the authority of Maitreya Muni, and he was thoroughly educated in transcendental knowledge, he was quite competent to occupy the post of a teacher, a spiritual preceptor. Srila Prabhupada references the verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kene Noy, Jai Krishna Tattva Vete, Shai Guru Hoy. According to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anyone who is conversant in the transcendental knowledge or the science of God, whether he's a Brahmana, a Shudra, a householder, a sannyasi, is eligible to become a spiritual master. Even in the moral codes that Chanakya Pandit gave, there is no harm in taking lessons from a person who may be by birth less than a Shudra. So that is something that is very important that Srila Prabhupada has taught us. And the other thing about Vidura specifically is that he was Yamaraj in his previous birth. Yamaraj was one of the 12 Mahajans, along with Brahma, Narada, Shiva, Kapila, Bhishma, Prahalad, Janaka, Vyasa, 4 Kumaras, Bali Maharaj, and Shukadev and Manu. So, being a Maharaj, it is the duty to preach to the world. It is that was their main job. The cult of devotion was to be taught to the people of the world, like all of these Mahajans did in various ways. But Yamaraj was responsible to address where people had to go after death, and like Prabhupada said in that purport, there were more sinful people that had to be dealt with than righteous people. And so Yamaraj was always very busy doing his duty, which was asked of him by the Lord. I mean, that was his duty. He was deputed by the Lord to do that, and like all the other demigods were also. And so he never got an opportunity to preach. And it was his desire to be able to preach. And so this curse by Mandavya Muni gave him that opportunity. He was able to preach, and we have heard so many of his instructions that were given to so many different personalities in the Bhagavatam, that he got that opportunity, and that was all because of this curse that Manduka Muni gave him. So we have to understand that a devotee is never a Shudra or a Brahmana. He is transcendental to such divisions of mundane society. Just like the Lord was, incarnated as Kurma, but we don't think of him like that. Even though, we don't. That's not the way to look at him. He's transcendental to whatever incarnation he has taken, and so that is, he's above all mundane creatures. The Lord and his different authorized devotees sometimes have to play the role of many lower creatures to claim the conditioned souls. But the Lord and his pure devotees are always in a transcendental position. And that's another point that we must always remember. So when Yamaraj incarnated himself as Vidura, at that time, and this is just uh, and that was for 100 years. So while he was away from his post, Aryama, who was one of the 12 Adityas, one of the sons of Aditi and Kashyapa Muni, he took care of the duties of Yamaraj. We have heard many times that hearing and speaking about the Lord and his devotees is very auspicious. So, this verse is focused on the birth of Vidura. Um, so, I thought we could go back a little bit and recount a little bit from the Mahabharata, because hearing about the Lord and his devotees is most auspicious. We have heard that when we take bath in the Ganges, the sins of sinful people are removed. But the Ganges gets purified when great devotees take bath in her waters. So they have that power, and so it is very auspicious for us to hear again and again and again about these topics. So while we hear about the birth of Vidura, we will also hear a little bit about Bhishma, who is also a Mahajan, and so it will be a good opportunity for us to hear one more time. So the Mahabharata begins with King Shantanu, the emperor of Hastinapur, who was born in the dynasty of the moon. He was a great king. He ruled righteously. He inspired his citizens to be contented and worry free. He had everything any king could desire: youth, victory, fame, fortune, obedient citizens, and wealth. The only thing he did not have was a queen. And he desired to have a queen to be able to share his happiness or his concerns. And so one day, as he was walking on the banks of the Ganges, he ran into a very beautiful woman who actually came out of the Ganges. So he inquired who she was, and after the initial inquiries, very quickly he asked her if she would marry him. She agreed, but she stipulated one condition. She said he should never question her actions. If he did, she would immediately leave. He was so wanting to marry her that he quickly agreed, and so they were married. Very soon she was pregnant, but right after giving birth to the baby, Mother Ganga wrapped the baby in a white cloth, walked over to the river, and drowned the baby. King Shantanu was dejected. He was so looking forward to having a heir to his kingdom. I mean, that's one reason why we have grihasthas to have children, so that it can be propagated, devotional service can be propagated. But as he kept his promise, and so he did not question his wife. Year after year, this happened, and 6 more times She would give birth to a baby, she would wrap the baby in cloth and drown the baby. But the eighth time, King Shantanu could not control himself and he questioned her. He said, "Woman, how can you do this? How can you be so heartless?" He didn't have good things to say and he was very upset and he asked her. So then Mother Ganga said that she was bound by an oath herself and she had to comply, and she explained it this way. She said there were eight Vasus who lived on eight Vasus lived on higher planetary systems, and one day as they were flying over Vasishta Muni's ashram, they saw a beautiful celestial cow, Surabhi, and the oldest and the leader of these eight Vasus, his name was Dew, and he wanted the cow for himself. I've heard in other places that it was his wife who instigated him to get the cow. But anyway, whatever the case may be, it was that oldest and the leader of the Vasus who wanted. The other seven discouraged him. They said it may not be a good idea to get the uh, get Vasishta Muni angry over this. Uh, but Dew was very greedy at that moment and he persisted um, and tried to take the cow. Vasishta Muni found out and he cursed all the Vasus that they would have to be born as humans on the earth planet and they would have to suffer a human life. The Vasus, realizing their terrible situation, they pleaded with the sage and they said, "Please, forgive us. We shouldn't have. We're very sorry." Um, the sages, as they are always compassionate, even though once the curse is given, it cannot be taken back. He said that right after being born there, their life would end and they can go back to their planet. But the leader who started this was not spared. And Vasishta Muni said that Dew would have to live a very long life full of pain and anxiety. Uh, since uh, so yeah, so he made it a little bit easier for the seven Vasus, but the eighth Vasu, the leader, was not spared, and so uh, Ganga then told King Shantanu that the eighth son born of her um, will live the first part of his life with her. Actually, I think Shantanu asked her to take, and she told him that she also had to come down as part of a curse. Um, she also had to come down as part of a curse, but she was a celestial person, and so he asked her to take the baby and give him the best training in science, religion, morality, in everything, in martial arts. And so the baby, the boy got his training from Vasishta Muni, from Parashuram, and so he was trained in all aspects. Yeah, even in how to be a great king and so forth. And when the baby grew up to be a young man and was all that, she brought him back to King Shantanu and she introduced him to King Shantanu as his son Devavrata. So that was the eighth Vasu. The eighth baby was named Devavrata. Actually, like I said, Ganga was also cursed, and so was King Shantanu. They were also cursed. I think they were in Brahma Sabha, and Ganga was there. A little breeze blew, and sort of moved her upper garment, blew her upper garment away a little bit, while all the other demigods and celestial beings looked away, and uh, King Shantanu did not remove his eyes, take his eyes away from Ganga, and and uh, and so he was also cursed to be born as uh, he was also cursed to be born on earth, and so that is how both of them were placed on earth together. So anyway, King Shantanu lived happily with Devavrata, um, and the young boy was growing into a young man. They loved each other, and thank you. Uh, um, um, they were happily living with each other, but King Shantanu still didn't have a wife, and but he wasn't looking for one. But one day, as he went hunting, uh, Devavrata was becoming very capable, so he was able to manage the kingdom. King Shantanu was able to leave Devavrata. To manage the kingdom. And one day he went hunting, and while there he saw a beautiful woman sitting in a boat. And she had this most fascinating aroma about her, and she was taking people back and forth. She was ferrying people back and forth on that river. King Shantanu approached her, and shortly after that, he asked her if she would be his wife. She agreed, but she said her father would have to consent to the proposal. And so King Shantanu went to her father. This girl's name was Satyavati, and the father was Dusharaj. And Dusharaj was very happy to hear King Shantanu ask for his daughter's marriage, but he said, um, a great Muni had told him that according to her horoscope, she would marry a king and that she would be the mother of a king. And he said, so I cannot let her marry you because you already have a wonderful son who is going to be the king. So it's not possible. And um, uh, King Shantanu couldn't argue with that. He loved Devavrata. He knew Devavrata was completely qualified to be the king in every way. So he went back to his kingdom thinking this was not possible. But he couldn't take this girl out of his mind. He uh, he was constantly thinking about her, uh, and everybody around him could tell that he was something was on his mind, that he was sad about something, and even Devavrata could figure that out. But he couldn't tell why he was so dejected or what his father's dilemma was. And so Devavrata worked quite hard. There are a lot, the story is quite long about how many times and how many ways he tried to figure out what was bothering King Shantanu. But finally, he figured it out. So he went to Dusharaj and said, please, you've got to, my father is very affected by this. You've got to, I don't understand why you would not let him marry your daughter. So Dusharaj again tells Bhishma, I mean, he was not Bhishma at that time, he's still Devavrata. He said, my daughter has to marry a king and be the mother of a king, and this is not possible if she marries your father because you have to be the king, and so that's why this cannot happen. Devavrata says, that's not a problem. for my father's sake, I will not be the king. You can very confidently get her married. Dusharat says, no, I don't think so, because you may not want it, but when you get married, your wife and your children, your sons especially, will want to be the king, and it will not be possible. So Devavrata at that moment takes a vow and says, I will never get married and I will never have children. I will be celibate for the rest of my life. When the demigods heard this vow, flowers were showered from heaven on Devavrata, and shouts could be heard, Bhishma, Bhishma. Bhishma means the one who took a terrible vow. And from that day on, Devavrata was called Bhishma. And actually, we also use the word in Telugu, at least the word Bhishma is used to Bhishminchi Kuchunnadu, meaning somebody who has very firm on what they will do. They will not budge from that position. So, so then Satyavati got married to King Shantanu. In due time, she had two sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Then Chitrangada became the king. When he grew up, he became the king, and he was a very good, qualified king. He was doing a great job. One day, a Gandharva by the same name, Chitrangada, showed up and said, nope, there cannot be two Chitrangadas. It's either you or me. So let's have a fight. Whoever wins will be the only Chitrangada here. And a great fight ensued. And Chitrangada, the prince of the Kuru dynasty, died. And so one son was gone, and only Vichitravirya remained. Vichitravirya was still very young, so um, uh, he, I think, King Shantanu then left because he was getting older. It was time. He left for the forest. He retired to the forest because he wanted to dedicate his last days uh, to um, spiritual growth, spiritual development, and so he left. The responsibility of training and uh, taking care of Vichitravirya fell on Bhishma. He did a great job, and Vichitravirya also became a capable king. Then it was time for Vichitravirya to get married because, again, heirs to the kingdom had to be had. So uh, Bhishma went to the kingdom of Kashi, and he kidnapped. A Swayamvar was organized for the three beautiful princesses of the Kashi kingdom, and when he went to the Swayamvar, everybody that was there thought, okay, I guess Bhishma has given up his vow and he's going to come and pick a wife for himself, but Bhishma went there to get these qualified, beautiful princesses for Vichitravirya. So he just went, and he was so powerful, he managed to kidnap the three girls. Their names were Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. He kidnapped the princesses, brought them, and tried to get them married to Vichitravirya. But the oldest of the three girls, Amba, had already given her heart to Shalva. And so when uh, Mother Satyavati heard about this, she said it is not right for somebody who's given her heart to another man to be married to Vichitravirya. So she asked Bhishma to take her back to Shalva. So Amba is very happy, and so she goes back to Shalva, but Shalva says, I don't think so. I am not going to marry you because, uh, Bhishma touched you. I'm not going to So Vichitravirya is not marrying her, Shalva is not marrying her. So she asked Bhishma to marry her. She said, I've got to be married to somebody. But he says, absolutely not. I have taken a vow and I'm not going to. So Amba is very, very dejected. Uh, she feels she's lost everything and everybody. And so she goes to the ashram of Parashurama and she asks him to help, and he agrees to help her. He tries to come and convince Bhishma. Bhishma still does not agree, so they have a huge fight. They're both equals, and so uh, uh, neither one could claim victory, and the demigods requested both of them to stop this terrible fighting. It was nothing. It was something that they could not handle. So then, now again, Amba is dejected. She prays to Lord Shiva. And this is a very long episode. I'll just try to say it quickly. She prays to Lord Shiva, and Shiva, being pleased with her austerities, says that you will be the reason why you will be the reason for Bhishma's end. And she's very happy to hear this. So she jumps in fire and she ends her life. But then she is born as the daughter of King Drupad. She knows that as a woman, she cannot be the reason for Bhishma's end. So uh, she uh, uh, she performs more severe austerities and she gets the male body, and that is Shikhandi. And in that way becomes the reason for Bhishma's end. Okay, let's come back to Vichitravirya and let's get back to Vidura here. Uh, Vichitravirya is living happily with Ambika and Ambalika. And this went on for 7 years or so, but no children were born yet. But Vichitravirya all of a sudden becomes ill and he dies. So all this effort by Dushraj and Satyavati, and there are no heirs to the dynasty, to the Kuru dynasty. Chitrangada is dead, Vichitravirya is dead, Bhishma is refusing to marry and have children. So Vichitravirya, King Satyavati tries to convince Bhishma that under these circumstances, it is okay for you to have children with your brother's wives. But he categorically says, no, yeah, I'm not going to break my promise, and it's not possible. So then Satyavati remembers an episode, and she tells it to Bhishma. She tells him that before she got married to Shantanu, um, uh, like she was doing, she was ferrying customers on the river from shore to shore. Excuse me. And Dusharaj was asking her to do this to earn pious credits. If you ferry some great sage, he would bless her with a lot, boons, and so he was doing that, and she was carrying people back and forth on that river. One day, Parashar Muni got in her boat. Uh, and as she was taking him across the river, he was doing some astrological calculations, and he said that just at that very moment, a personality of Godhead was going to appear. He was going to incarnate right then and there. So he asked Satyavati to bear that child, but she said, "How can I? I'm not married. This is not right. This is very wrong." But Parashar Muni assured her that her chastity would remain intact, that nobody will know. Actually, I will create an island that will not be visible to anyone, and so she can have a child. But she says, I'll have a baby, and everybody will know. They will want to know where did this baby come from? Whose baby is this? And he says, no, this child will appear as a full-grown uh, child, a full-grown person, and so you will not have to deal with any of this. And that child was Vyasadev. And because he was born on a dvipa or an island, he's called Dvaipayana, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasadev. And Vyasadev tells Mother Satyavati that any time she needs him, all she has to do is think of him and ask him to come, and he will come and do whatever uh, she desired. So, and then he goes away. And then we heard that Satyavati got married to Shantanu and all those. One thing to remember here is that we shouldn't think of these things as mundane affairs. This Satyavati having a baby with Parashar Muni and all that. These are very transcendental, and these uh, they're not mundane. They're not of mundane nature. So we have to be very careful how we perceive them. So anyway, Satyavati thinks of Vyasadev. Vyasadev at that time was in the middle of severe austerities. He appeared to Satyavati and he said, Mother, what is it you want? And so Satyavati tells him the situation. She says the Kuru dynasty is without heirs. So please, as the brother of Vichitravirya, please do this for our dynasty. Vyasadev says, yes, I will do it, but at the moment, this is not the right moment. I'm in the middle of severe austerities. My appearance is not conducive to this. Please let me finish my uh, uh, austerities and I will make myself presentable. I will come back and the timing will be right. But Satyavati says, no, no, it has to be now. Things have not been going right all this time. Look at that. Vichitravirya dies, Chitrankana dies. I mean, King Shantanu is gone. You have to do it now. And that is it. She refuses to wait. So Vyasadev says, okay. So he looks frightful. He has matted hair. It's described that he was not clean. He had matted hair. Just a very difficult picture to behold. So when he goes to Ambika's chambers, and Ambika and Ambalika, they actually wanted to end their lives when Vichitravirya died. They did not want to even live, but Mother Satyavati said, please don't. And so they relented. And as good princesses of good quality, they agreed and they were there. So, and they agreed to Mother Satyavati's proposition of having children with Vyasadeva also. And so when Vyasadeva walked into Ambika's chambers, she was just scared. She couldn't even look at him. And so as he was impregnating her, she kept her eyes closed. So when Mother Satyavati asked Vyasadeva, how did it go? Vyasadeva said, yes, she's going to have the baby, but because she kept her eyes closed, the baby is going to be born blind. So then Mother Satyavati requested Vyasa again and said, oh, we cannot have a blind heir, so please help me with Ambalika. And Ambika told Ambalika, this is how Vyasadeva is going to look. She prepared her, but still Ambalika was not prepared to see what she saw, how she saw Vyasadeva. And so even though she kept her eyes open, she was very scared. She was very pale. And so when Mother Satyavati asked Vyasadeva again, how did it go? He said, well, she kept her eyes open, but she was too fearful. And so the baby is going to be born pale and weak. Satyavati again said, please, one more time, you've got to help us. And so she sent him back to Ambika. But Ambika just could not bear the thought of facing Vyasadeva again. So she just dresses her maidservant, a Shudrani, as the princess, and this maidservant uh, was very she was deeply devotional, and she treated Vyasadeva with awe and respect, and so when Mother Satyavati asked Vidura, asked uh, Vyasadeva, how did it go? He said, yes, it went well, but because it was the maidservant and not Ambika, he's going to be a Shudra, but he's going to be virtuous and deeply devotional. And so Vidura was born like that. So their three children were Dhritarashtra, the blind child, Pandu, who was pale and weak, but because even though he was the second born, he was destined to be the king, and that's how Vidura was born. So, just a recap of the Mahabharata and how Vidura appeared. We've heard this many times, but again, like Vidura had said, we never are satisfied hearing. You can hear this again and again and again, and it is good for us to hear them. And I was listening to a class Romapad Maharaj gave on this verse, and uh, he was saying that our duty as grihastas, as devotees, as devotees who are trying, our job is to keep hearing these uh, pastimes. And the Prabhupada Maharaj was recalling a question that one of his disciples asked. She asked him, Prabhupada, so when we chant should we be thinking that all the people, like Vidura was asking this question for the entire humanity, if our chanting was going to help the entire humanity, and Prabhupada said, how can you even think about the welfare of the entire world, entire humanity? Your job is to chant and hear the names of Krishna. And so that was another realization that I got from this verse, as it was said in the purport and in the purports that I mentioned. And like yesterday, Kaivalya Prabhu was also talking about all the samskaras. As grihastas, we have a duty. We have a duty to do our chanting as best as we can. And we do the best we can to raise children and to help all of those souls also go back to Godhead. So that is what I had for today's verse. Some of these verses, they don't bring up questions. It is for us to hear again and again. We've heard this again many times over the last few verses. We've been hearing about Mandavya Muni's curse and how Vidura appeared. We've heard this many times, but again, hearing these pastimes are auspicious, and so I'm hoping that that is what I have done today. If anybody has any realizations, please just go ahead and share it with all of us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother Sobha Radhe.
Hare Krishna.
This is my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for sharing in this way. The Mahabharata is a very, very wonderful and detailed explanation and very detailed account of Shastra. For some reason, though, I first read it in 1996. It was given to me as a gift, and I found it just wonderful, wonderful. And because Bhagavad Gita is involved in it, it's very valuable as well. But for some reason, those who consider themselves scholarly in Shastra, like have minimized it. It's very detailed. So, they're like, oh, it's like a soap opera or something like this. And I'm really happy that you've shared it in this way today for many who perhaps don't know so much about it or considered it less than. I mean, it's Shastra. It's a part of Shastra. It's Shastric. It references the relationships that Krishna has and how those servants, those Vaishnavas, those beings came about. And then we see how Bhagavad Gita came about and is a part of it. So I just wanted to thank you for, having the intuitiveness to share it and apply it to the verse and, help us maybe rekindle these aspects that have been minimized for some reason or not. But thank you so much for giving a wonderful, truly, truly wonderful, detailed account. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I remember asking Charuchandra Prabhu this question because, like you said, Mahabharat it has a great impression on me also, and I really enjoy. But it is, I think, in some verses and some purports, it was said that it is meant for the less intelligent, and so maybe in that way it is uh, uh, misinterpreted. And I think what I remember, as far as I remember, what he said is, I mean, that is where I am, and uh, one should not think they are above a certain level, or but because it is giving examples, some people, I guess, misunderstand it that way. Um, but you are very right. It has, I mean, again, one of the things is we have to serve the person Bhagavat and the book Bhagavat. And so this is how we serve, by hearing and learning and learning from these personalities. Kaivalya Prabhu, do you have anything that you would like to add? And
Sure, Mataji. Thank you very much. Wonderful class and detailed description from Mahabharata, all the parentage, Vidurji and Pandav. That was really great. Mahabharata is very good epic, but people say it's for less intelligent people. But I think, personally think that it's very good, Mahabharata. Bhagavad Gita is from part of that. So all the instructions are there, what Krishna says for our life, it is manual actually. So we can read it, it's not, because Prabhupada says less in the beginning, many places in Bhagavad Gita also it says less intelligent, humans are less intelligent, there's so many things, we see animal and this and that. But actually when the same question was asked to Prabhupada, he said that the women in the ISKCON, they are very intelligent. That's why they adopted this great philosophy, otherwise how they will, So we should not think it's less intelligent or more intelligent. It's all, intelligence is God gifted actually, so we should not distinguish that way and try to read Mahabharata also if we can, if we have time. But we say that way because Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, it has all the ingredients what we need actually to get liberation. So, or engage in the proper pure bhakti. So that's why they said that this is kind of appendix, if you have time, you can read, but if you don't read, it's not going to harm, because everything Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam has everything in it, all the things what we need. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
It was very wonderful, Mataji, to hear all, like, whole Mahabharata you bring out and connect it to this verse. It was really nice, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Don't see any other hands up. Thank you. All right, then. Everybody have a wonderful Krishna conscious day. And we'll meet again tomorrow morning at 7:50. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyas.
Kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namo.
Om Namaha.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Bindu
Vaishnava Vrinda
ki
ki
jai.
jai.